morning. Today we'll be discussing about language fluency. Now, to better understand language fluency, we have to look into form, meaning, and use, or when we say form, function, and fluency. When we say form, we're looking into its form, we're looking into grammar that pertains to the rules of a particular language. When we say function, or should we say content, we're looking into the words itself and their respective meaning. And when we say fluency, we're looking into its use in the context of social functions, in the context of situations. That means to know what fluency is, we have to make sure that um, we could be able to identify its distinct characteristics compared to form and function. When we say form, we refer to grammatical features that are highly related to how words or how a language is being used in different contexts. Now, in the case, let us say, of brick and mortar supply. Now, a form is highly divided into two main aspects. Number one is bricks, related to vocabulary specific to the content and the concepts. However, mortar is referred to the words and phrases used in sentences. It's sometimes referred to also as um, how the language is being held together, and lastly, how words are related or connected to one another. When we refer to function, we refer to how language is used in different tasks or purposes. We understand that the use of language to accomplish something in formal and informal settings, or social or academic purposes. Now, here are the example of functions that we have. Number one, exchange greetings, when we express the needs, when we make jokes, when we indicate agreements and disagreements, when we are trying to participate in personal conversations. In the context of academic purposes, we seek information, we inform, we compare, we try to analyze, we classify, we infer, we evaluate, and then we persuade. In the context of fluency, so we can definitely identify how is this one different to others. We have to make sure that we define fluency not as to how, for example, a person is knowledgeable in a particular language, but how the person could be able to facilitate his expressions, his desires, his objections. How could the person could be able to deliver all of these things? Hence, we say that you are fluent, but it doesn't mean you could be able to deliver using a particular language with um, correct or appropriate grammar. It doesn't mean like that, because when we say fluency, it is highly limited only to um, what are the contexts and appropriate ways on how to get things done. That means on how you can definitely express your thoughts, desires, objections of who you are to different situations. Now, what are the factors that we can consider? What are the factors that we can consider towards all of these things? So number one, we have to look at input, output, grammar, vocabulary, set expressions, motivation, amount of intensity of instruction, and then the last what we are achieving is fluency. Now, let's look at the role of input. When we say the role of input, we refer to how, for example, a learner or an individual experience the language. In this case, experience English. If we're not looking into experience, we're looking into exposure. How are you exposed in the language? Are you exposed in a language that is comprehensible? Are you exposed in a language that is abundant and reliable? And definitely this language must be pitched at the right level, and that is rich enough to expose you or the students in its full range of features. These are the things that we have to always remember. Now, aside from exposure and experiencing the language, you also have to look into um, the output. No? We have to make sure that at the end of the day, the learners can develop familiarity with the language, and eventually they could be able to produce one, no? Or produce, for example, a letter or a conversation or a message in that particular language. There must always be a task. There must always be a task that will definitely lead to the production of something using the input, because we have to remember that the role of or the idea of making sure that everything else is um, leading to not perfection but permanence is it is always being used, because if something is not being used, definitely it is not being practiced, and so it will not be permanent to an individual. That is to say, as a teacher, we must design tasks that will lead to a practice. As a student, we have to make sure when it is time to practice, it is time to practice. Now, a particular output is tantamount to um, a force. A particular output is tantamount to a force. Force produces language that is grammatically um, acceptable, or at some point also unacceptable. That means if, for example, the output leads to anxiety among learners, that is definitely the expectation is that is grammatically unacceptable. But if, for example, force allows the learner to be encouraged, that particular force allows the learners to learn more, to do more, to do better, then at the end of the day, grammatical constructions are getting better each day. Words are evolving. That means they're not evolving. There are more words added to someone's vocabulary. And so that can be an indication that they are learning very well. Now, next is grammar. Our students need to learn grammar so that their language becomes comprehensible and socially acceptable. But we have to make that balance. According to Rinandia and Richards, without a good knowledge of grammar, learners' language development will be severely constrained. However, it doesn't mean that when you are learning grammar, you need to know everything else. I mean, the most complex one, just like a linguist. According to Swan, we should select grammar item based on comprehensibility and acceptability. According to Swan, there are only few lessons in grammar that the student must know. Number one, basic sentence structures, verb, basic verb forms, tenses, and aspects and models. That means if a person could be able to know all of these four, the person can actually survive. Now, since we are moving forward learning about grammar, we say no to linguicism. That means we are not promoting language imperialism at this point. Our students' language should be internally comprehensible and acceptable in the global community. That's the only goal. That whenever they use, for example, in this case, English, people outside the Philippines, especially the native speakers, could be able to understand them. According to Littlewood in 1981, we should not worry too much over grammatical accuracy as long as the students are able to communicate their ideas in the foreign language. Language errors are not important as long as they do not interfere with the intended message of our communication. That means if the language error is too glaring, it interferes with how a person understands the message. That becomes now a problem. Otherwise, everything else is still manageable. Now, when we look at vocabulary, according to Wilkins, Without grammar, very little can be conveyed, but without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. That means while grammar is important, vocabulary is more important than grammar because grammar pertains only to rules. However, vocabulary pertains to the words themselves and their respective meanings. Alderson said the size of one's vocabulary is relevant to one's language performance. Now, these are the different sizes of vocabulary. We have 3,000, 5,000, and 2,000. According to Loafer, if you already have 3,000 words, then definitely you could be able to um, survive social functions. Okay? According to Hearst and Nation, if you have 5,000 words, you can survive social functions. According to Hinkle, if you have 2,000 words, you can survive social functions. Now, Hinkle is 2006. That's the latest. But we have to we have to make sure that this is not about how many words you know, but this is actually about do the words that you know. I mean, do you know how to use the words that you know? Maybe you know how to define them, but you don't know how to use them in different kinds of sentences and situations. So this is something that we have to always look into. And my suggestion is that aside from knowing the words, you know how to use them also. You should not be limited by knowing their respective meaning, but you also know how to use them in different situations. Now, according to Nation and Smith, there are 4 levels of vocabulary knowledge. So when you say level 1, a person doesn't know the meaning of the word. Level 2, a person have already encountered the word, but he doesn't have a very particular idea of what it means. When you say level 3, the person knows the word, he knows the meaning, but he can only use the word in different, or I mean in very limited context. In level 4, he really knows the word because he could be able to use the word in different contexts. Now our goal is that at the end of the day, we shall not be level 1 or 2, but we should be level 3 and 4. Now when we talk of set expressions, we refer to the smoothness and the speed in real-time speech. We refer to expressions that are being used in day-to-day communication. And we say that these expressions, though some of them can easily be memorized, but we must know them. But we must know them by heart. We know when we say "How are you?" We know what does it. We know it. What does that exactly mean, or what does it feel, etc. Next is motivation. There are a lot of considerations that we keep on saying when we are looking into when we are teaching them fluency. But according to Terrell Bell, he was once uh, a secretary or a minister of Department of Education. Yeah, secretary of Department of Education in the United States, or deputy secretary, probably. He said there are 3 things to remember about education. Number 1 is motivation. Number 2 is motivation. Number 3 is motivation. That means if we would like to make sure that our children, our learner, are learning very, very, very well, we have to make sure that they are motivated coming to classes, learning every lesson. That means we have to design the package of our lessons the way they would appreciate it, and the way they will see that this can be used in a day-to-day basis. Now, there are 5 T's according to Wheeler in India to make sure we establish a very good motivation aspect of our teaching. Number 1 is a teacher. First and foremost, a teacher must be motivated to teach students. Otherwise, students could be able to feel that, and so they will not be motivated. The methodology must also be improving from time to time. The text that we're asking our students to read, the tasks that we're asking them to read, the tests that we're giving them. The test should definitely always match the ability of our students, and the test must be designed based on the lessons that are delivered. Second, amount and intensity of instruction, we have to make sure that we started with allowing them to be exposed and to experience the language. And so at the end of the day, it must lead to confidence. If that doesn't lead to confidence, therefore, therefore there is now a problem with our input, there's a problem now with our output, there's a problem with everything else that we do inside the classroom. There's a problem with the teacher, with the methodology, with the text, with the task, and with the test. That's why we have to design them, that would lead to encouragement, that eventually would lead to confidence. And then the last, if they be able to do all of those things, that will lead to fluency. According to Willie Renandia, fluency is the ability to process the language with ease and accuracy. It doesn't mean that you are fluent. You are highly observing the rules of a language, which is grammar. So as long as it is comprehensible, so as long as other people can understand it, you can be considered as a fluent individual. Now, don't ever forget uh, the word flamingos, because flamingos is actually what we are advocating at this point in time, that everything in language teaching must always be leading to fluency, and that we are not promoting language imperialism. Our goal is not to be like the native speakers. Our goal is not to sound like the native speakers. Our goal is to make sure that we are being understood by the native speakers and other speakers of the language as well. Now, these are the references that we have for this lecture.